Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to ladies and gentlemen. No matter where you are, I hope you're staying safe and healthy. Welcome back to ARCHIDEX Online 2020. My name is Xianwei, a MASA representative, and I'll be your moderator for today. Firstly, I would like to thank ARCHIDEX 2020 for giving MASA an opportunity to conduct this session. We are pleased to have this collaboration with ARCHIDEX. For those who don't know what MASA is, I hope you can lend me your ear as I explain further. MASA stands for Malaysia Architecture Students Alliance, and it is a non-profit student committee operating directly under Pertubuhan Architect Malaysia or PAM, consisting of student representatives from all architecture institutes in Malaysia. It is a platform where Malaysian architecture students join force and learn and share with appreciation of the past, generating sustainable living in the present, and bringing unlimited possibilities to the future. Our mission is to develop an effective platform and network between Malaysian architecture students and professionals. We also serve as liaisons between students and PAM. We represent the voices from architecture students. This is what we are. So today, we are proud to present our special guest, Architect Adranta Aziz, the Chairman of PAM Education Committee, and Architect C.Y. Chan, who will be sharing his experience and ideas on an intriguing topic. To begin with, let us welcome Architect Adranta Aziz to say a few words. Hello, Architect Adranta.
Hi Zenwei, how are
Hello.
you?
I'm fine. How about you?
Good. So you had your dinner, yeah? I
Yeah, had
suppose?
it.
Very well.
Nice to
So all
be
right,
here.
thank you so much for your introduction, Zenwei. Hi everybody, hi students. My name is Architect Edran Aziz. Welcome to Architects Fast Forward webinar series under Educations Beyond the Studio. Right. So this evening, I suppose that all the students have a good time and good coverage because we're having a special online series under Architects Digital Month. As you know that from 6 August until 4th September, do follow up with us. So this webinar series under education, we have a 4 series starting from today, 5th of October, and the next one will be on the 14th of October, 17th October, and 20th October. Do follow up with us and keep your eyes on our media, especially under Architects, MASA, and also PAM. First of all, I would like to say thank you so much to CIS to organize this session, and also to all MASA committee, Malaysian Architecture Students Alliance. Congratulations that you have done a very good job, very well job, which I heard that we have a many series MASA online, but tonight, start from tonight, we have a special event under ARCHIDEX Online Fast Forward webinar series education, supported by PAM, Malaysian Institute of Architects, and also ACAI, Acacia Committee Architectural Education. Well, tonight, we have a special event which we're going to celebrate together on the 5th of October 2020, World Architecture Day. It's celebrated on the first Monday of October in parallel with UN World Habitat Day. And today, 5th October 2020, architects around the world celebrate World Architecture Day, for which the theme this year is Housing for All, a Better Urban Future. Well, this year, World Day seek to draw the attention of professionals as well as the public to problems concerning cities and habitat. Dear students, remember this: when you start to designing for future development, please focus on human and Mother Earth. We need to prioritize to reduce the impact to the environment. So it's a very good theme today, coincides with our topic, our title by our special guest today, customization approach from boxes to mass housing typologies from architect Chan Chin Yao. So quick one, let me introduce his background. Architect Chan Chin Yao studied architecture in University of Science Malaysia, USM Penang, and obtained his B.Arch Architect in 1996 and thereafter his master in town planning in year 2000. After gaining vast experience in the architecture field, he finally founded his very own practice, CY Chan Architect or CYCA in year 2010. Over a decade, CYCA has worked on the diverse portfolio of built works which extended from master planning to private houses, both locally and overseas, mainly in China and Cambodia. So throughout the years, CYCA has been honored with numerous architecture awards for the recognition of his works, including PAM Awards year 2017 under category of single residential with the gold medal, PAM Building of the Year 2017 under the project Twinkle Villa, MBAM PAM Architectural Design Competition year 2017 in the second place, and TIDA International Home of the Year as a runner-up. In his effort to impact his knowledge to encourage local young architects, architect CY Chan has shared his knowledge at a few local universities and various forums. He is also actively sharing his ideas through local architectural events and exhibitions and was invited to participate in some of them. Wolf 9 Pan Chill and Chat lectures, PAM 10 House Exhibition year 2017, and also PAM My House Plot Projects year 2018. My dear students, the function of city is not solely fulfilling the needs of living shelter by adopting the homogeneous urban pattern. It shall also allow the growing of various and choices within the same habitats. The living pattern shall able to emphasize on the value social equilibrium that promoting community living with integration of natural settlement and its sustainability. The innovative nature of ideal living environment is expressed by a simple formalization. The city must able to dedicate contextual coexistence and addressing the multiple ideology and values in our own way in view to transcend existing order and customizing an alternative prototype for our future living environment. Tonight, this presentation is intends to share some inventory on design solution as alternative from existing building prototype to mass customization design approach throughout series of work in CYCA office. The works show the process of delivering personalized and customized design and architect's effort to break through the existing design order and create alternative design solution within its context of rapid growing city. Well, student, relax, sit back, okay? Set positive mind, enjoy this session. If you have any question, feel free to drop them in the comment and chat section on your screen, and we will try to answer them during the Q&A session at the end of today's talk. Well, without further ado, let's welcome Architect Chan Chin Yao. Architect Chan, how are you, Architect Chan? Hello?
Hi.
Hi,
Hi,
Chan.
Ajanta. How are you?
Fine,
Yeah,
thank
I'm
you so
fine.
much. Thank you so much, Architect Chan, spending time this evening with us, and especially for the students. I still remember then when I call you as your, invite you to this session, and you are pleased to help us. Thank you so much for your time. And then, without further ado, the floor is yours now.
Thank you, Ajanta. Um, Thanks for Masa for inviting for this for having me tonight. This will be a lecture for actually students, and also thanks for Malaysian Architecture Education by PAM, and also CIS to organize this platform. This will be a lecture for students mainly on the design process. The topic is customization approach from boxes to mass housing typologies. Let's introduce myself. I'm CY from CYCA, and these two are my partners. We have about 10 to 12 of us in office, and these are the few projects that we are going to use to elaborate some of our design idea. As the practitioner architects in private sectors, we will always have an exposed to some design concept, some clients' requests, some limitation in terms of rules and regulation, and all these things will be affecting us in doing some jobs in commercial way. And all these things will eventually will lead us a little bit swing away from what we always learn from the school originally. And these are the process when we are trying to fight against the strength and against the stream of the commercial to go back to our original intention. What should architects go for? So whenever any lectures, we always ask back ourselves, what is architecture? And what architect do? What is the design and how we come up with the idea and the creativity and innovation? And when you have many architects will give you many reasons and many elaborations on architecture. And when we go on drawing board, there's a way and how we start. So when we have all these questions, we always, as an architect, will not able to answer if we do not have any background research, any reading, or any understanding about ourselves. So whenever we ask any field or any conceptual, any philosophy, we always go back to three questions that in life we always ask. The first question will be where we come from. And the second question will be, how should we live our life and where should we live? The question number three will be, where will we go? All right. Uh, Tonight, I'm trying to cut very short. I'm trying to finish my lecture in about 1 hour's time. Question number one, I wouldn't able to answer that. You have to ask your father and mother. Question number three, probably you ask your seafood. Nobody knows how to answer. But how should we live our life is all about the question of sociology, psychology, spiritual science, humanity, social, economy, politics, and architecture. And I believe the basis of answering all these three main questions in life will eventually become the purpose of one of the purpose of our architecture. Why we want to do building design, why we want to do architecture. So how do we live our life? It's all about where and what. When I said when we live our life, architecture is all the time talk about places, location, and time. So these are all the macro issue. So when we start asking all these questions, that will be the basis we form our thought and our architecture ideologies. So in any design that we actually adopted during the design process, these are the fundamental and always lead us to start thinking what are the design idea that we want to adopt to use in our design. So that is where and what Kuala Lumpur is our city. And we always start looking at a city as a whole and the macro area. Then from the city, we will always go into the regional and go to community and go to location. And this is what we all the time we learn about context. So, but before we start designing, a city as a whole, we always need to understand and observe surrounding. What is the issue that we have? KL, if you look at the red line, you can see the very clear boundary line between city and suburban. And it's actually very clear. So, but when Malaysia urban population keep increasing, the boundary of city is keep expanding, and there will be only phenomena will happen where all these suburban people will pushing away and the city keep expanding. When the land in the city is so limited, resources are so limited, there will be only a responding to that. So, and this the way of the responding to the expansion of urbanization will always not lead by architect, or it will not lead by scholar, or it will also not lead by anyone, but it's always lead by the rule maker and market. And sad to say, there's only a few options that we have seen in the market. So the first option, the responding on all this city issue is what we can see surrounded our area is all the house, all the high rise that have a high density block building. We have standard shape of the heavy block, and I call this is the block attack. And the second response, the way that we actually respond to the issue of the expanding city is you try to push the whole bunch of the population away from the city center and create another satellite town. 50 years ago, Petaling Jaya became a satellite town. Then later on, Ceras, Puchong. Then now, even Lawang, Serikembangan, Kajang, this area becoming a satellite town. And eventually, it will be keep expanding until the border of all the satellite town merged and become a metropolitan. So then all this eventually the pattern, the living pattern will eventually change. So when we have all this, these are what we have: general built environment and urban pattern. We have block attack, we have monotonous satellite township, and you are looking at the building design. You are actually expecting a same type of person staying together with the same design and same way. So I would think that the person who actually creating, or the market actually creating this kind of design that to house all the population, basically they are thinking every one of us are alike. There's no difference between each other. So when we choose houses we want to stay, they basically has no option, no choices, and no preference. But that is not true, because what we believe as an architect, everyone is different. You have different hairstyle, we change clothes every day and with the different color. And so we have different esteem, we have their own preference. So then why, since we have each images of us in different way, but the houses that available in the market are so monotonous? So that we go back to the question, whose fault? Is it architect's fault that we have all this the monotonous pattern of the built environment? Is it developer? Is it buyer? Is it government? If you look at Singapore, Singapore government is actually building all the HDB flat are alike 10 to 20 block at one time. So is it banker? So and most of the time people will look at that, all right, this is probably social's fault. All right, so the question back to architect, if we have the chance, if we have the choice, why there is no optional design and idea, and where is the creativity or the innovation? So when these are the becoming, when we start looking at a city as a whole, these are the issue. And when we start relate all these cities and also the urban issue, it will eventually back to the first question we ask: how we live our life and where we want to live. So as an architect, we are always respond to macro issue. When we start looking at macro issue, and then only we have the capability to look at the micro issue. The micro issue will be your client's need, your building design, a piece of land, how to build up a concept, how to build a form and space, and what are the ideologies that you want to put in, and eventually come up with a solution. If as an architect you have no basis and background to understand the entire urban issue, basically you are actually very weak in the sense of the giving a solution to your own building design. So architecture idea always start with what we when you start believe in something and when you start knowing what you like and what you don't like. So as an architect, we believe that just what architect Adrianta mentioned, the function of city is not only solely fulfilling the need as a living shelter, but we also have the different people, different esteem. So we do not need to have a homogeneous urban pattern. Then the solution is, as an architect, before you start designing a house, before you start designing a location, you need to start thinking and understand how man should live and where to live. All right, so back to today's topic, customization approach in architecture. In CYCA, this is what we believe is actually a design process to reconfigure and emerge something that you believe and something that you like and deliver the personalized customized design and service so that to specify a very micro way of your customer need, just maybe your single client, or to provide a solution to the general environment in macro way. All right, so just like coffee, everyone know about coffee. 50 years ago, you do not have a choices. You just go coffee shop. You can either go for order for coffee with milk, coffee no milk, coffee gao, coffee ice, coffee less sugar. That's it. But nowadays, people are actually realizing everyone has their need and is different. So market provide a customized coffee taste for everyone. You can either order latte, cappuccino, macchiato, or americano. So all sort of different tastes of coffee that you can choose. But when you go to when we look at the merchandise, shoes, table, chair, clothes, hairstyle, coffee, there's so many choice. But how come architecture in our building industry in the houses that are available is so limited choice? So that we will back to the question on why architect can't actually design a better choices. So when we go to back to the customization approach, this is actually a way, a design process when we are trying to identify what are the design variants that actually can influence us into a design process. So when we start looking, when as an architect, when we start designing a houses or designing a building, you will have a lot of design variant that you need to consider. Clients need historical, culture, city, climate, site context. All these are, are, are the design variants. And of course, as an architect, you can never do one perfect design to cater for everybody's need. That's not possible. So means we always reckon as an architect, there's no perfect situation, a perfect solution for one design. So we always outline in the design process, all these design variant will have split into two. One is constant factor that you must consider and you must follow and you must comply. Those constant factor are the client's need, rules, regulation, bylaw you need to follow, safety and health you need to follow, site context, site analysis. You need to consider west side, east side, where will be the sun, where will be the wind, all right, where will be the terrain, human comfort, structural limitation, cost and benefit. You can never design a project that the client is losing money. All right, you can never design a house that beyond the client's budget. So these are the constant factor. So when you and this constant factor is a fundamental for us to come up with the building design. And of course, on top of that, there will be a variance. When all these variants are for architect to reconsider whether you want to be incorporated in your design or you want to take it out. And all these things rely on what you believe and what you like. And it's all about preference and all about ideology. So all these design variant, we can actually list down some like integration of natural environment, repetitive ideology, sense community, form shape, and all these things will somehow coexist and reconfigure. Eventually, it will come and some and become a one product. And some of the variants, even at some time, the the dominancy of the variants may be different. Sometimes some project human comfort become the most important. Sometimes some project landscape or natural environment become the most important. So all this will somehow will go through the customization process to understand the relationship between the design variance and the human so that become infatuated it changed. So as a student you will eventually will see what are the things that you like and what do you think, what are the things you believe. So just like example, a project at the left and project at the right, so it will eventually different variance, the degree of the consideration and the weightage of each variance will eventually affect the outcome of the design. So, and how this thing will affect it eventually will become the design process outcome. When in this design process, the outcome will very much depends on basically the ideology and what you believe. So So this outcome eventually we will split into full customization or mass standardization. And what we trying to do along the process of the design solution, and we can actually come up with a full customization just for single solution for single user, or you can come up with a single solution for multiple user. But what we, and these are all too extreme. So, and most of the time architect will actually go in between is how the customization process will actually take the weightage of each variance and to come up with their own design pieces. And at the end of the day, architects' work are not solely about designing a building, but we also come up with a solution. So the level of customization in design solution, the basic, you need to fulfill the client's the need, the user's requirement, the function. If the level of customization can fulfill the first layer, then the next level will probably can solve some of the neighborhood and urban issue. And of course, at the ultimate, the design solution will always go to the mankind's issue. What is the mankind's issue? I remember in one of the quote, someone said, in the current era, whoever can solve mankind's issue, he will be the richest man, just like Bill Gates. He solved the information, he solved the computer issue. Alibaba solved your online issue, marketing issue. All these people is giving a solution for the people to be makes the life easier. So it's still back to the first question: how you want to live and how you want men to live. So that will eventually become a basis of your thought for architecture ideologies. All right, so I will use some of the CYCS project as a reference to elaborate how this customization process can eventually influence our design decision and eventually will become the different option and prototype in our design. So the customization approach in this project is we try to unlock the box and we try to integrate with nature and we try to do what we believe. This is in general by this project is a house in the natural environment, is a rainforest, and we try to interpret and we try to elaborate how man should live in the jungle. When I said man live in the jungle, there will be immediate idea is jungle is full of hostile, not safe, lot of snake, monkey around, bird around, probably tiger, lions everywhere. So we are trying to create a bird cage logic. Most of client, when they want to build a house, they love the natural environment, but they still wanted to protect themselves into a cage. And this cage will basically give them a safety that there's no attack from external, but in another way, they also can't go out unless they open the door. And this is what we believe is when we are when we are when we are designing a house in a jungle, we actually shouldn't barrier ourselves with just a cage and also the steel bar. So this design is trying to break away the four wall in between of boxes so that we can have an intact with the natural environment in our design process. So this is one of the houses that we're trying to first, of course, fundamentally, the clients do not want to cut any of the tree. So that is the client's need. So safety is the issue. So and also there's a budget control. There will also these rules and requirements. So all these are the constant factor that we need to consider. But in the variance, how do we put a house in the jungle? When you're designing a house in the jungle, are we calling it as a green architecture? Is it a sustainable design? That's it. In just putting a house in the jungle, we call it is green architecture? No, it's not. So the challenge of so-called the sustainable design or so-called green architecture is we try to see how man can actually move around within the living space with no barrier with natural environment. And this is actually a floor plan of 2-story, a simple one. And if you look at the floor plan, this gray color area is the corridor of the house. And it is also the entrance and it's also the entrance to the back. And you actually can't see the main door. So those gray area is the area where monkey, snake, and also whatever things can actually come and visit your house. And you are actually living together with all these natural neighbor. So what we are trying to do is we're trying to unlock a house from a 4-side wall into all the smaller spaces. So from one boxes, we're trying to reconfigure all the spaces and elements into a smaller boxes, and we take away all the 4 wall. Then we try to use C-shape of the concrete structure to wrap it over. Why concrete C-shape? Concrete C-shape is because in tropical forest, there are always a falling wood. There are always something drop from the tree. So if you're using either metal roofing, you're either using tiles, it's not practical at all. So the best for safety reason is to use concrete. So that's the reason why this whole house still looks like a box. And if you can see from this picture, basically the house actually is split into all the small elements spaces and just protected with one vertical wall and one horizontal wall. Horizontal wall is basically is to prevent all the fallen wood fall down to the houses, and one of the vertical platter wall is basically is just a barrier from outside going inside. So from the left is an entrance from the city. From the right is actually another entrance to the jungle. You are just going through the center tunnel. So these are the tunnel. We call it tunnel, and we don't call it entrance because it's actually a house entrance. But this house entrance has no door at all. When the client asks us, where's my main door? And we try to convince him and said, if you wanted to live in the jungle, you try not to gauge yourself into four wall. So it is very difficult to convince a client not to have a door in his house. So at the end of the day, we actually able to convince him so that all the room with the door, of course, and the entrance has no door, linked to the living area. Living area, we have the one open living, we have one enclosed living. Enclosed living, we have the door, but open living, we do not have the door. So we do not know whether he want to call this as a house or has his own resort as what. But eventually he's staying here until today. So far no complaint. And this is some of the picture from one side to the other. I will not going to elaborate more on how the building form looks like, but basically, in the building design, these houses basically we use wall as a nature wall, a concrete wall without finishes to barrier up the entire built environment from the front and natural environment on the back with just single one concrete wall. And we are trying to reflect the actual, the honest of the finishes of each the house element. Like we are only using this entire building, we do not have plaster, we do not have the paint. All the structure are actually bare finished, and all the brick wall is just a bare brick wall. So this is trying to reflect the true nature of the finisher or the houses itself. And eventually we are still trying to convince the client that a man, when you want to start live in a jungle, and this should be the way that you live your life, instead of you trying to create four wall and close yourself and create a steel bar so that you protect, and you just look at the jungle through the window and the bar. So eventually the design will very much influence on what you believe and also what you want to select. So this is actually one of the attempt we are trying to break away and unlock a four walls houses. And of course, as an architect, customization for a single building is easy. You can design a houses whatever you like, as long as your client agreed. But what if when we start looking at the mass customization, uh, customization approach when you start unlock a boxes and you unlock a repetitive into the mass market. Designing a bungalow is easy, but what if we are trying to go into a mass market? Would this kind of unlocking the repetitive still able to achieve what we want? All right, so as I said just now, most of the new township typology, we are using the modular grid, we are using the multiple, uh, the similar shelters, and all these houses, you basically has no identity. You basically you are not able to find any differences from left to right, from row to row. So to create this kind of satellite monotonous satellite township is easy. Just designing one unit, and you duplicate, and you make a row, and you multiply with many row. That's it. I think this is what happened in the market now. Most of the township are alike. In the middle of the township, you hardly find your house unless you're going to find which road and what number. So, so when we trying to do another project is this is another project we're trying to do is a small housing. We try to unlock the standard boxes. The the plot layout sizes has been fixed by town planner. We can change it. So what we can do is we trying to reconfigure the space in between and to turn the back lane into the green lane. Then for the facade, what we can do in this project, we can't do much on the plot itself, but we are trying to do some variety and design variants on the facade. So this is what we're trying to do. A single row of terrace houses. What we're trying to do is we're trying to unlock the repetitive housing typology so that we can create a variety in facade and also the layout. Then we at least while we are having a similar design character. So if you look at the roof plan, type A plus type B and type C and A and C and D and back to A again. So means in one row of houses, at least we have the combination of 4 or 5 design variants so that you can have actually created the unlock, the repetitive. And this is what we believe. We believe everyone is different. So even though your house should be able to reflect the differences of self-esteem. So that's how we trying to do it. This project was completed in 2015, I think. We have type A from the left and type B and type C, and it's actually and changing. So eventually, we can't say we try to design something that for people to stay together and live differently, but at least it looks differently, right? So internal, there will be some marginal variance in changes, but it didn't change a lot. So it's just sometimes staircase to the left, sometimes to the right, L-shaped staircase and link staircase. And all these things will eventually change some of the combination of the space planning for each type is different, but at least there's a choice. So this in this design, we it's actually an attempt for us to see whether the developer is able to accept row houses, a repetitive row houses can be breakthrough and become a different variant on facade. And of course, this is complete in 2015. In this project, we have some challenges. The challenge are actually not from developer. To developer, looking at the cost and benefit analysis, to them, the profit they want to make is actually not much different. Even though the facade is a little bit different, even though they pay a little bit in terms of form work, in terms of the coordination work on the construction cost. But what in this project, what we actually having a biggest challenge is actually from the engineer and the contractor. Engineer are actually crying and screaming to us for all sort of the design so that they cannot have a one type of structure design and to accommodate all the unit type, and they have to change, they have to design unit by unit, row by row, and the contractor had to build unit by unit and row by row. And the experience from this project, what we learn is even though architect is is trying to create something a little bit different, but the market is maybe not ready. Even though the client is ready, but maybe the engineers is not ready, maybe sometimes contractor is not ready. So I will actually elaborate more in my lecture on this project actually. All right, so this is another project we're trying to go for when all the design variants, the fix the clients need, rules, regulation, safety. So the next thing that we are wanted to do is we are trying to challenge what is the repetitive and in stacking and in high density. When we say high density means high rise. And I always, and this is actually, this is in Singapore, and that's the project that I visited. Uh, and I stay in one of the unit inside. That's why I took a picture. And I always wondering how these people can actually live inside facing each other. And we every day you are looking at the same type of unit, same type of block in front of you, and you feel that you actually know not much different from them. And sometimes we're asking where are you inside when you're staying in these kind of houses? Is to me is actually quite sad that people actually staying in this kind of flat. Then you have lost your own identity. It's just like the aspiration of the humanity. Then you can't have a self-expression inside a houses like that. So what we are trying to do is actually we always trying to believe we should have a choices for people to stay and to make themselves a little bit, at least it looks different. They can use the space differently. And from the left, this is what we always believe. Repetitive. From one unit you design, you multiply horizontally and you multiply vertically. So mass customization is the concept that you are trying to reconfigure all the unit to become a different sizes, different variants, and different layout so that you actually to merge it together into another design product. Right. This is one of the house. This is one of the design that we did. We use the typical repetitive block. We cut into two, then we twist it and we turn it around. So we make it become a one cascading up and one cascading down. And this is the outcome of the building block design. So that when you start doing that, of course your layout will be very much different, and you will have a very lot of design variants, and you actually trying to break through, even though it's still a single block, but at least you can break through the box, the shoe box design. And in this design, what we're trying to create is actually we're trying to break away a box design house, box design apartment. So on one side is cascading up, so that people have the choices that you can actually have more sunlight on the east side, and from the other side we actually all the units are cascading down so that you have a shading from the top on the west side. And these are the very much on, of course these are all about uh, site context, is also about site analysis and taking consideration on the environments. But eventually what the main factor that determine the design concept of this building is we believe a a, a house, a user or customer or a client, that you should always have a choice to choose a different variant in one project. So in this project, what we do is we're trying to do a lot of variants in building design. So each block, each level has a different layout until we have different transformation of floor. So the whole apartment, we have a total number unit of 208, and we have unit type of 74. So out of 208 unit, we need to draw 74 type of unit type. So it means sometimes it's from studio unit, it's some one room and it's two room, and it's sometimes three rooms, sometimes 3+1 room, sometimes 2+1 room, and it's different angle and it's different reference. So in this, what we're trying to promote is we believe a design you should allow a difference in choices and different in sizes so that you can accommodate a different demography, different needs, and different entry price. So these are the some of the idea that you believe and you want to do, and you think that we should, as a man, when we live in this world, we should able to have a choice rather than just swallowed by what the market has been all the time offered to us on the monotonous block. Okay, so the fourth project is when the customization approach go into a little bit further is when you start doing repetitive, you go for stacking, you consider the density, and you start adding up natural environment and community living into your design consideration. As we said, design variance, it can be it can be it can be anything that you believe, and you can anything that you like and you preference, and how to choose is all rely on what you believe and your ideology of your architecture. So as the customizing the alternative community living prototype as a normal way in a low density housing, a landed houses, you plus a natural environment and you plus community. That's how you looks like ordinary typology of design solution. So that is how happening to most of the project, that some of the developer promoting a natural environment, big park with the lake in between. Then you got houses at the next to it, a big tree. This is an ordinary typology of design solution. and and for the high rise, and when high rise you mix up with natural environment and community living, and you can see nowadays in town there will be many landscape in the high rise. They cut into the boxes, and all the boxes they come and plant with a tree, and you can have a full a podium landscape with waterfall and features, and you even go to a rooftop have landscape. And all these are is very common in practice, that people adopting the natural environment and the community living on the podium with the full facilities for people to mix around. All right, so what if you want to go a little bit further? So when we go a little bit further is we still go to the mass customization concept on from the repetitive unit, and we mix up with the natural environment from the surrounding context, and we plus the vertical community. When you say vertical community, where is the community come from? Um, the community of, let's say, a one high rise block come from the basis is the floor plate itself. If the floor plate have the 4 unit, that is a small community. If the floor plate of the house of the apartment is 10 unit, that 10 unit will form their own community, and each community will later on ended up with the total number of the building block, and this whole building block will form the larger community. So that's what we mean community. So how do we accommodate different size, different skill of the community from the level one level by itself and entire block? So this project is somewhere in Kotong Jaya. So what we're trying to do, and this is actually okay. This is the standard residential block, normally we do 4 unit corridor at the center. You either see one side, you'll see east side, the other 2 units see west side, standard. And we are trying to rotate every 4 unit, every floor into different 90-degree, and you intersect it. So you become 8 units. 2 level become 8 units, one typical 8 unit. So then this one, we each of the unit we're trying to variance and set in again, it will become another variance. So eventually all this arrangement will basically will try to interlock so that we can have create an open space on each floor. So then we're trying to use this open space of the each floor allowed to plant trees. And this each floor, every 4 unit, when you intersect with different direction in 90-degree, you will find that each floor you will have one spaces is actually vacant. That is, we actually convince the client to convert it into a community space. And this community space is only solely used for the 4 unit of this floor itself. And the other 4 unit below will have another one small section of the community space and green area for them to mix around. And this thing will multiply, become a high rise, and we actually trying to extend the high rise into the podium, a cascading type of the design, so that to merge into the natural environment. And eventually these are the combine of the 2 level of plan, so that you can see the community garden and community garden intersect each other. And you can see from the perspective, this is the where the rooftop of the lower floor will become the garden of this community area. And when we start talking about community, we are always not to refer to the podium level or the ground level of community, because this thing you need to take lift down, you need to take staircase down. So when we say community living, is at least you have to form a community space within that particular 4 unit of the level first. Then only you can successfully to form the entire community living for entire high-rise block. Right. So that will be then, of course, with this kind of design approach, we will eventually every floor also different. And this is how we do it on the different floor. So then you can see, if you're comparing left floor plan and right floor plan, you can see the rooftop of the intersection on the floor below will actually become a rooftop, and this rooftop will eventually become a community living. So we are not creating an additional space and waste developers money to build a redundant space, but we actually using the form to intersect and become the interlocking, so that the rooftop of the other people's roof, the unit, will become the community living. So of course all these things will have a lot of cost and benefit consideration. But when you start believing that man should live not only for yourself, but you have the community that you need to mix around, and that is what men should live together, but stay together, but live differently. And that's the reason why we are start creating this kind of design concept to accommodate that what we believe, right? So eventually in the design process, what you believe is very important. It will eventually determine what are the choices and preference, the variants that you're going to choose in the design process. And of course this is the perspective, and that will be the perspective of it. All right. Um, we go to another project. Customization approach. We're still talking about high rise, repetitive and stacking and density, but when we start considering the urban low income community living, and we need to have to be very careful is because these are all talking about cost benefit analysis, and most of the time all these low income group are not under this category because developer will not able to make money from all this low income community living. So what we can do as an architect, so as what I said, back to the issue of the city that we from the start of this presentation. When city expand boundary expanding, land is become so expensive, and but in KL we still have this kind of places, and we still have this kind of we don't call it slum, but it's actually a places as was been abandoned, and eventually the pressure of the development of and the land use will eventually eat into all this area. So when we stay in a community, it's an urban. When we start increasing and growing community, the boundary of community is expanding. When expanding until certain level, there is no limit and there is actually no more option, land become expensive. When land become expensive, there will be some pressure will be imposed into a different class of the social. So existing from the community will remain when they start migrating. So they will go into either new housing A and new housing B. A family size of the urban area when they start expanding and growing, new generation will basically have no more spaces for them to stay. They will eventually scenario one they will go migrate, and they migrate they will not able to stay together in their community, and they will go to new area, and this new area is always far from the existing community. And what will happen with this is old housing will be demolished, and eventually the scenario two is you just entirely demolish and take over, even though from the old generation, so that they start building and become a new form of the city skyline. And as we all know, when all this new form of city skyline was built, there is no way the existing owner or existing community can stay in this kind of community. So there will be a new community form. So what happened to the old? So the low income group will always shift away from their existing homeland to the suburban, and this is where they go, right? Prima houses, Rangoku, and other low cost housing. It is actually quite sad is because when we start expanding the city and then become expensive, this low income group can never have the chance and the right to to stay and retain in their own community. Oh, so where is the land for the new home within the community we grow up? So so there is so that when there is a too little land left over, this will be such a design idea we're trying to introduce. It is not real. It's actually a design experiment that we're trying to use existing shop houses to create a new home for them, so that to resolve the issue of limited land in the urban and city center. So, and these are some of the examples that we found. Some of the old area in town, shop houses has been abandoned and nobody is using it. and some not even not using it, but it was abandoned is also because of the social structure and economic structure on the area has been going down. So all these they have actually no tenants and it's been abandoned. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to introduce new population and new generation into all this area so that we can actually create market and so that people that live surrounding this area can still remain and stay in their neighbor community. So the idea is we are trying to do is what we're trying to do is we're trying to reuse the space, the airspace of existing shop houses which is abandoned, so that we can unlock it. And we trying to use the housing module and IBS system to introduce for the fast track construction so that it is minimum disruption to the existing shop houses. So the idea is existing abandoned shop houses, we're trying to look at the possibility of the airspace and that will eventually be created structure on the steel framing grid and we creating all the basic structure and eventually this will become a new form of housing uh, that we have also introduced certain kind of expandable modular system in these houses so that at least eventually this is one of the idea that can be introduced to resolve some some of the shortage of the houses in the existing community so that at least people that stay in the existing community had a choice to buy a property that nearby so that they do not need to live away from their grown up land. And this is how this project was not a real project. It was actually an invitation to be participate in the My House exhibition in 2018. So this is our design proposal that we're trying to give an optional solution on the low income group and affordable housing for so that to resolve some of the issue on the low income. All right, so that is one of the inventory we are trying to. So why this project, the design how they looks like, is because we believe that we shouldn't as as a man we shouldn't take away the chances and the choices that we stay in the where we grown up. So even though when the urban or the city become more and more expensive, it's actually not a reason for the different classes that push all the low income group away from the city center. So of course all these are the ideology that you need to believe so that only you can have a reference to what are the design variant that you want to adopt it in your design process. Okay, O2 Resident is one of the project that we will show you of another attempt how we trying to break through not only repetitive stacking, density, natural environment, community living, but most important is square. If you look at the whole city, most of the building, the skylight, even though you twist here, you twist that, you have a hole in between, you got the staging, you have the cascading, you have left, right, and zigzag, but it's still a box. Um, we have some question on is that a ultimate solution as a box for a building design, for a house design. So if we had a chance given and create another housing scheme, are we putting in another box into this city skyline. And we always believe and look at natural environment. And in natural environment, either it's a river, smoke, highway, or tree, or stone. There is no straight line. But why is my built form has to be straight line? Of course, many say its structure it is economical, is engineering, but many of the merchandise thing that we use is not straight line. So why building has to be straight line? So that actually become an our challenge to start questioning on why houses has to be straight. So this is another design attempt that we're trying to see if when we talk about living with natural environment, but you are putting another box into the jungle and the square, the edges or the boxes are still there. So how do you blend well with the natural environment? It's not possible. So in this design, we are trying to get away from the square form and try to go for non-linear form. And this project was completed in 2017. Uh, all right, we believe building is a living organism that can able to breathe. Why able to breathe is a building by itself. We don't say it's actually technically it can breathe, but at least in the building itself, air can actually naturally and freely flow through, and light can actually naturally going in. So wind, light, and all the natural forces can actually freely to grow and to pass through within this building. So that we call it O2 city. And the concept was inspired by the structure of, so when they say O2 city means oxygen, and we start talking about oxygen means oxygen, and of course we know size. Oxygen is come from for photosynthesis, and the photosynthesis are all back to the leaf, the chlorophyll and chloroplast. So what we do is here we're trying to use the biological cell form of the chloroplast put on our site, and we trying to cut up the building form, and we trying to put our building block onto it, so it will become 6 block of the building form, and eventually we will become all the building form, since the building form is following the chloroplast, the natural biocell of the leaf itself. So of course it's not square. So when it's not square, then we try to house a unit into this design. So it will become our challenge. And this is what we call it the interpretation of the natural environment in and mass customization will eventually will break away from the individuality. All right, we have total 6 block and total 508 unit in this development, and the average size ranging from 1000 to 2006, and within 500 over unit we basically have 200 over type unit type design. It means each block each block of the houses has different form, and each unit within the block itself have a different unit design. So of course on the facade wise, we also trying to make it as a more integrated with the nature dimension. So this is all organic dimension that we do. All right, this is a standard one building. What we're trying to do is we're trying to split the layout into 3 layering, so that we can easily to manipulate the layout. Standard wing is the corridor. If you're looking at the corridor, then the middle ring is all the unit and lift, and the outer ring is the balcony with variant size. So from external, you can actually see different size and different form of the balcony itself, and so that will give a more dynamic form of exterior in terms of the organic form itself. And what we are trying to do is actually you're looking at the layout, and we understand from most of the apartment, when you come up the lift, the basic typology is you come from the lift, you go straight, you either your house is at the left or your house at the right, or is either is crossing or is straight. In this design, since it's actually an organic form, we are trying to create bridge from lift lobby to the house itself. So means all the corridor that connecting from the lift lobby to the house are through the sky bridge. So we have different sky bridge for different unit, for different block, and sometimes this bridge was also connected with the from block to the other block, and eventually this will become one type of the concept that you are not actually living into a kind of rigid uh, concrete forest, but you are just living in some kind of I won't say resort, but it's actually a more nature way of the building form, so that you have actually we always believe men should have a choices for you to move around instead of straight line, instead of left or right. It's our nature to move around. So from the house, from the lift back house to houses, is also for us to move around. And this is how the corridor link bridge looks like. Uh, by right, we wanted every floor. The link bridge form is different, but Bomba is asking us to go straight because the smoke requirement, so we have no choice. We got to standardize from level 1 all the way to level 15 had to be seen. All right, this is the where we show and how the natural environment, natural ventilation can actually cut through even through the car park to the podium itself. And these are all the features for the green building features. All right. What we are trying to do also is we always have a problem on the car park. So when you're doing the podium design with full car park, the 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 car park level is all the time is dark and stuffy. So what we do over here is we're trying to cut the building in a little bit, so that one of the corner actually all the way in, and in the center of the podium we create one echo pool, so that all the natural ventilation and lighting can be dispersed from this center court. And of course, this is one of the eco pool that I know in town that we created just to house the rainwater, so that we can actually harvest this rainwater. And basically, this development, one of the features that we are trying to solve is actually we actually trying to use rainwater to flush the residential unit toilet. All right, so the owner have the choice to either use the rainwater to flush the toilet or use a shower's water to flush the toilet. And of course, this is another attempt that we believe that we should have the choice to choose the angle that we want to live, the space that we want to live, and the sizes that we want to live. So at least the freedom to choose is the concept for this entire development, so that we will have a certain kind of freedom that we actually move around within this building as well. All right, I will show you the last one is And we are trying to consider all as in our customization approach in all the variants. But last one will be the time. Okay, this will be the current urban pattern. We call it block attack. And what if time become part of the design variant? When we say time become a design consideration, that you need to think your existing design is not only designed for now, but it will be also designed for future. So then you will have to certain kind of prediction that how man should live in future. I give you an example of when time become the most dominant design variant during design process. This will be happening. And China has erected a 57-story skyscraper in 19 days. And why is so proud of this building is because in 19 days they completed entire construction. All right. So what does it mean? Are you happy with the design, with the boxes all the way up from ground floor all the way to the rooftop 57, no change, and stacking just like Lego, and put up the screen and use and fit up with all the M&E that you can start using? All right, that is a ultimate example when time become the most dominant design variant during design process. So if time will be the most dominant design factor, or in a way, social economic, cost benefit, profit, market value will become the most dominant factor, and that will be happen. Our future city will be exactly like that. Right? So what we can do as an architect? So when you start thinking, when time become a design factor, then you need to consider whether you want to live a city like this, or you want to have another option. So what we are trying to do, I wouldn't go long on this project, but I just want to pick up one item, is because when we start talking about when time change, market demand will change, and clients need change, and when we evolve. So you cannot use the current uh, understanding of how men live to determine what will be future design. So because when we said why architecture is so important, you design a bungalow in 10 years before, it will basically last until you die. So it will eventually last at least minimum 50 years, minimum 50 years. So whatever we are proud of previous in our pure design, when we start looking back, oh my God, that is not supposed to be my design. So when time become a design factor, we will always predict what will be the future. So this project, I won't elaborate more, but I will pick one of the features that we are trying to incorporate is we are trying to elaborate what is the meaning of sustainable development in the future. Every time, all architects students will always trying to explain my concept is sustainable development. We always have a question to the student: is sustainable development is a concept? No, it's not. It's not a concept. Green architecture, is it a concept? No, it's not a concept. All this is a basic need. It may be is concept in 20 years or 30 years ago, when people are not know what is it about. And when Dr. Kenyang start talking about the machine learning and all these things, we are all okay, right? But until today, it's still consistently that proven that this is actually very important, even though start from 30 years ago back. some of the master architect is already mentioning and predicted this will be the future living. Then when all these master architect when predicted what will be the future living and how men should live in the future, they start talking about it and they start doing the design and this consistently until today. And nowadays, sustainable development, green architecture is not a concept. It's become a basic need. So in this project, what we're trying to interpret is the sustainable development in future. And what is future? When you have depletion of resources and the food and water and all the resources in the world and the changing climate, all these things, and everybody knows, all right? But what does it mean? It means in our interpretation and what we believe in this project is food production is one of the very important criteria in the building design. So whenever you design a building, you need to consider whether the building can harvest food or not. So that will become one of the most important feature in development, we call it self-sustaining city. And we may not have the need now, but eventually this design had to be start developing now until the technology, until the idea mature in one day. And this is what we believe. And when I believe a lot of architects and many architects will eventually will start looking and start doing. I will not elaborate and take example. I mean, most of you know Black Bija, all these people. They will basically already start talking self-sustaining city. So food production may not necessarily now, but it may be in necessary in future. So in this project, we are trying to work together with my landscape consultants friend GRD, Mr. Lee, and to start identify spaces, hidden spaces, unused spaces, rooftop area, garden area, protrusions, and also hang, so that we can actually have a certain modular system to create an urban farming space, so that we can try to create a certain volume of the food production every day for entire city. All right. So these are the design process when time become a design factor in the design process. Of you looking, of course you're looking at a picture, you can actually recognize the form are still back to the previous O2 resident that we are further developed on the concept of organic form of the building design. All right, so when we go to conclusion, architecture design approach, we always come to constant factor which you need to comply, and there are many variants. And when you use the customization approach, you eventually will create your own style and your own architecture pieces. And along the process of the customization, and how to reach your own style and eventually create your own architecture pieces that are very much rely on your skill as an architecture student to reconfigure, to emerge and transcend all these design variants. And it also rely on what you believe. If you believe house is a machine to live in, that's what Le Corbusier say, okay? Then you still back to what Poland's last time, the old apartment layout design, this one. And also it depends what is your preference and what you like. And so all these things will even you somehow evolve through the years of experience. And of course we call it experiment, and of course failure. There will be many failure in the project that I showed you do just now. It's not entirely perfect design, and we have many problems and all the project that we showed to you. But these are the routine that we do every day. so that we have, and one day we hopefully can create our own style. And for as an architecture student, you eventually you found your own architecture path. All right, so at the end of the day, fundamentally, we still back to the first question we asked in the beginning of the slide, as how men should live and how men should stay together and live differently. And the level of customization in design solution, as I said, the first you need to fulfill the basic need, your function. Then if you can, then you go up one level and the other level until you solve the mankind's issue, right? And all these design variants, all these constant factor is a fundamental knowledge as architecture student that you need to know now. All right. So until one day through the whole design process, you eventually will come up your own ideology and you create your own masterpiece. All right. So if there is no perfect solution in design, so in C1CA, we always say at least there are options and choices. Right. So that's what we say. If you cannot do great things, so do small things great. Okay. All right. So thank you. I pass the floor back to Adianta.
Wow, such a truly informative, Chan.
I didn't pass the time like 1 hour. Okay, like
It's a very impressive, yeah, and I can foresee that your lectures is truly benefited to the student. Yeah, it's a very important lectures, and I really hope that the students can take what you shared just now. But again, I always believe, and we've been talking about housing project. There's a difference between house and home, because this is my personal view. Home is about the starting place of hope, dreams, and love. And the magical things about home is that it feels good to live, and it feels even better to come back. So this is what I can see what architect Siwai Chan explaining about his project, because home is where love resides, memories are created, family and friends always belong, and laughter never end. Plus, don't forget, students, the design had to responsive to the environment, loving nature, because flora and fauna is the soul of every site. No matter what home means to you, there's a surely something nostalgic about the place we call home, because home is not only a place, it's about feeling. This is the quotes that I took it. And then home is where one starts from, where you feel love and appreciate and safe. This is what architect Siwai Chan has explained through all this project. So without, we're going to take about a couple questions from the floor. Is there any questions here? Well, I can see the students clueless. Chan, your lectures are truly informative, and for me, I'm impressed all the projects. Uh, Maybe the questions come from, this is the opinion about this Zulfarudiani, yeah, because he's saying that what you're saying just now, your choices is like a coffee that you illustrate just now, but the issue is not the lack of design options, but actually a purchasing power. That I will agree. Yeah, if you're talking about reality practice, it's true, because developer, of course, they're always talking about ringgit and cent, and also the title of our authorities. But what's your opinion about the building bylaws, or maybe the perception of the client, the stakeholders, towards your design approach, Chan?
as I said just now, um, in customization process, there's always a fundamental that we need to follow: rules, regulation, clients need, cost benefit analysis, responsive architecture, green architecture. You're asking me green architecture, responsive architecture, sustainable development. These are basic needs.
Correct.
It's not new, it's not idea, it's not concept. So, but how, on top of all this fulfilling the fundamental design needs, as an architect, if you want to create something for yourself, you must have something that you believe in and you something you like, the preference. And that preference and that's what you believe are very much relying on your own ideology, what you believe. So this one I can't teach because student always have their own preference, have their own ideology, have the things that you believe. But before you can go into that era, you have to start understand what is the basic first. And
Yeah.
this is what all the time lecture is trying to tell you: responsive architecture, green and sustainable development. All right, site context, pragmatism. All these things are basic and you cannot ignore it. And we don't use it as a concept. It's never a concept.
Yes, affirmative. I agree with you that. Perhaps, Architect Chan, can you advise to the students here, because I believe the housing project is mostly for the towards the final year students. Can you advise them how and the process, yeah, to do the process of concept and then design, especially for the students? Because from my experience, my advice, my view, the
Mm.
students now, they I don't say they're lazy, I say that they didn't use the best method to do the progressive of their concept, especially doing models. I saw you doing a models, and I saw how you're doing a messing. Can you please give a share the best advice to the students tonight? What is the better way to process the housing, especially talking about messing housing?
Okay, each architect, I mean, design process is not an ultimate. So it is a lot of option and way of doing design. Each
Yeah,
architect, they have their own way of doing design. Today, I'm actually presenting this actually my way of doing design is customization approach. It's one of the example how this thing can be merged, but doesn't mean this is actually suitable for all and it actually can be adopted. And it is difficult to tell what is the best way is because I believe each student they have their own way of doing design. Uh,
mm,
I would I would advise a student if you do not know how to do it, the first thing you need to learn is to copy. Copy first.
mm-hmm,
It's not it's not a shame to copy, but you need to know what to copy.
mm-hmm.
So I always advise the student do not copy the picture, but copy their concept, copy the ideology. So to use the ideology to fit in to your site context.
Yeah,
The location of site is maybe in Malaysia, maybe in Kelantan, are very
mm-hmm,
much different from New York, England, and Australia.
yeah,
But people have their very good mind and understanding and interpretation about concept. So do
mm.
not copy their picture, but copy their
Yeah,
ideology
ideology. Yeah.
and fit into your site and use
Yes.
your way. And you probably can see just now the variants and use those variants to try to explain in your way of their ideology. So
Precisely.
so you they may not able to come up with a new idea because they still need to have a lot of reading, but at least they need to start copying. So that we always say we are standing on the shoulders of giant. Doesn't
Mm-hmm.
means we don't look at them. We when we said we're standing on the shoulder of giant means we are actually use all these master architects mind to see a little bit far so
Yeah.
that at least we can see a little bit clearer
Yeah.
and it will be help students on their own design.
I
But
agree with you. I agree with you. I think what you're saying just now, I think for the students tonight, what Architect Chan advised is you have to find out your case study, yeah, your precedent study, and then being inspired by the ideology from your case study. Yeah. And then, okay, always remember, having somewhere to go is a home. Having somewhere to live is a family. Having both is just a blessing. Thank you so much, Architect Chan, for the eye-opening, very, very interesting and informative and rich sharing. Hope all the students enjoy tonight and gain a lot of information and knowledge. And then we keep in touch, Architect Chan. Yeah.
Thank
And then
you.
the world in architecture in Malaysia is small. So I'm so glad, I'm so happy. And thank you so much to invite you tonight. You can spend time with the students until like what's the time now? It's nearly 10:30. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah. So hopefully all the students, if you have any questions, just write down to the box, or maybe Architect Chan will follow up to answer it if possible. Yeah, Chan, because the time has been limited now. So
Right.
towards the end, any last word from you, Architect Chan, to the
Um,
students?
make yourself useful.
All right. This
Make yourself
good.
useful.
Thank you, Architect Chan, for your
Right.
session tonight. Yeah, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. So for all the students, do keep in touch with us, because there will be 3 more series under ARCHIDEX Online. And then there are, hopefully I see you again. Please be safe, be healthy. All right. So keep it up, the good works. Let's inspire by the past, build for the future. So with that, I pass to Zenwei to the floor now. Thank you so much.
Hello, thank you so much, Architect Arjanta. Thank you so much. And also, thank you so much to Architect CY Chan for that, for the very interesting sharing, and also the motivation and advices, especially for the students and young architects. So with that, it marks the end of our talk today. Thank you for joining us on today's online sharing session by our special guest, Architect CY Chan. Thank you so much to Architect CY Chan for sharing his idea with us. We hope you really enjoyed it and gained a lot from him. Also, a very big thank you to Architect Arjanta for being the moderator. And last but not least, I would like to thank PAM and CIS for giving us the opportunity to have this collaboration in ARCHIDEX Online 2020. Stay tuned for the next webinar on 14th October, 8:30 p.m. as we will be having Architect Mike with his topic, No Idea. I believe it will be a very interesting session, and we hope to see all of you there. Do keep in touch and follow us on Masa's Instagram and Facebook for more updates. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll catch you next time. Bye bye.
Bye. Good night.